webinar. In case you don't know who we are, my name is Michael Wallace, and I'm the lead coach trainer at Leadership Systems. I'm excited to have you guys all join us. I'll introduce this guy in just a moment, but what you're about to watch is an explanation, a little bit of education, a little bit of motivation, and excitement about a product that we have called Pathways. It's our student career planning. So we're excited that you're here. Maybe you're here as a high school student who's trying to figure out what your next steps are, looking towards college, and what does that look like? What does that look like now and in the future if you're maybe in college and you're trying to figure out what your major is going to be, or if the major you've chosen is the right one for where you want to go with the rest of your life. Or perhaps you're graduated from high school or graduated from college and you're just not sure what the next step is. Hopefully, you could even be in the position where you've been in a career for a couple of years and now you're going, this isn't where I wanted to be. I want to be somewhere else. How do I get from where I am to where I want to be? If you're in any of those places, or perhaps you're a parent checking this out on behalf of your student, welcome. We're really glad that you're here. Hopefully, we will answer as many questions as we can. If we miss something, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can always get information about Pathways at leadershipsystems.com/pathways, and you can get our contact info there and ask us anything you want. That's enough of me gabbing. I'll introduce you to Dr. Jim Smith, the president and founder of Leadership Systems.
Hey, thanks, Michael. Good to be with you today, and just a pleasure to talk a little bit about Pathways. And Michael's asked me first to talk just about Leadership Systems, some about our history, and some of how we operate. Leadership Systems is an executive leadership training and coaching firm. We were founded in 1992, and we've been coaching leaders at the mid to senior level of executive life ever since then. And we're here to help leaders, to help the emerging leaders. And as we began that pathway years ago, it wasn't long until we began to really sense it. And we were even invited into career coaching, and that was a real passion of mine personally. I know it is yours, Michael, and many of our coaches. And we even found ourselves coaching in the executive space, some university presidents and other people that introduced us to their student populations, and we began to really focus on the student. Again, it's for years been a passion of mine, and trying to help people figure out who they are and where they really want to go and what really interests them. And I know it's a real passion of a lot of our coaches, and so that really introduced us to this whole nature of pathways and how we could have some specific processes to help that be more clear and help people know what they want to do.
So Leadership Systems has been in the leadership industry for the better part of 3 decades at this point. Anything else about Leadership Systems that kind of sets LSI apart and really puts us in a position to be doing what we're doing here with Pathways?
Well, it does, because as I mentioned, we're an executive leadership training and coaching firm. Our real specialty is training coaches, and we're one of the few entities that actually does coaching and trains people to be coaches. Many of the other entities out there either just doing coaching or they're sort of a professional coach training, but we're one of the few that does both. But in addition to that, there's something about our coaching model that you'll hear later from a video of a student at the time named Dylan, and he was talking about this particular process as he experienced it. But the coaching model is really more about pulling and not pushing. It's more about listening and more about letting the individual, and in many cases the executive or the leader or the student, find a way that is really owned and embraced by them. It's not so much the athletic model of coaching where we know better and we're going to just tell them how to do it. And a lot of times we as parents try that mindset. We feel like we do have better insight, we do have more experience, and maybe we do, but the pushing it is rarely effective. So coaching is more of a pulling and a framing and a listening with some information to help that student really understand and embrace what they want to do.
Well, let's tell them a little bit about what Pathways is. So as Jim said, we have some buckets of the things that Leadership Systems does. This falls into the coaching category. And if you've already taken the time to look at the website, you may have an indication, a little bit of what Pathways is. But we've created this intentional process that is really focused on helping students get from where they are to where they want to be or where they need to be. Help them take the next step and make the next step the right step. We did some research recently and found out that the average price of 4 years of university education is about $122,000.
Ah,
That's a lot of money.
a lot of money.
That's a big investment. That's a lot of resources to put towards something that you maybe only have a slightly indication of what you want to do with it.
You want to get it right.
Right. You want to make sure you're spending that time. If you're in college right now and I've done the first year of gen ed, I know where the buildings are now. Great. That's a quarter of $122,000 spent on that. Once you start picking your major, then literally every dime you spend towards that degree, you hope is going to help you get towards that career. But the next stat we found was that about 73% don't even use it.
So change majors, different direction.
Change majors, go
More
back
money.
and get a different degree, get into it and go 2 years in a row, but this isn't the thing I want to do, and they try to switch around. We've seen a lot of this in people in their 30s and even 40s who they've maybe just plugged away for 10 years at a career that they thought they were supposed to do. It was the family business. Their parents maybe had nudged them this direction, or the parents said, we're paying for college, so you're going to get the degree we want, or they just went along with what their friends were doing. And a lot of these situations, what we're seeing, people not being fulfilled, and even if they're somewhat successful, not really feeling like they're successful in their chosen career path. So first of all, we don't want you, if you're watching this, we don't want you to be in that position. And I'm sure you don't want you to be in that position. And I guarantee your parents don't want you to be in that position where they're investing a lot of money and then you end up having to start over or pivot in a very slow, cumbersome, more expensive process to get to where you want to be. So we've created this pathways process to really help that every dollar you spend on your education, every moment that you spend on trying to figure out what your next step is and what your career long-term is going to be, we want to make every step count. And so this whole process is developed and intentionally created to help your next step be the right step every step of the way. So I'll tell you a little bit about what Pathways is, and Jim, feel free to interrupt me and say anything that you want about Pathways, but there's three main steps that we take in the Pathways process. The first step is assessment. And assessment is crucial, whether it's coaching someone who's an executive CEO who's been running the business for 50 years, assessment is valuable. If you're a 17-year-old trying to figure out where you're going to go with your life, assessment is valuable. We often talk in coaching that assessment is like holding up a mirror to the other person. And as coaches, we may not know who the person is that we're coaching really well, but the assessments give us that data that really allows us to point it back to the coachee and help them see who they are.
You know, Michael's a great point. Not only is it a mirror that helps the individual look in there and see a little bit more clearly who they are, but also gives the coach a fairly objective, data-oriented place to start. So we don't come there subjectively. We don't come there sort of pushing the idea, but it really starts with them asking and answering a collection of questions to help them know themselves better.
We've chosen assessments that match this exact goal, as he's saying, to be able to help the coachee or the student get to where they want to go. Some of the ones that we've chosen for this really match the mindset of trying to focus on career development. One is DISC, and you may be familiar with DISC. It's a quadrant-based, data-driven personality assessment that helps you understand a little bit about how you react to things, what your expectations are for specific situations, relationships, scenarios. So you have the DISC, really gives you a really good indication as to what type of a person you are, what your natural bent is. This is, again, really helpful in understanding what kind of a career path would you really enjoy? Where are you going to be successful? If you are really all about being outgoing and focused on people and you want to be in accounting, that's going to be hard.
It's going to be real hard.
Because accountants are more numbers, facts, a little more reserved typically. And so being aware of what your natural bent is really helpful in trying to figure out what career path you're going to go into.
You know, Michael, exactly. Whether you're more outgoing or you're more reserved is one of the axes. And then to what degree? And then if you see that and recognize about yourself, maybe no surprise, but to help it get a number, to help get a perspective of that. And then whether you're more people-oriented or task-oriented. And so, okay, yeah, I think I know, but to what degree?
Right.
Can you put a measurement on that? And that's the very purpose of that instrument.
And another one that we use that's actually even more data-driven and more specific with quantifiable data is the FIRO-B. FIRO-B was actually developed by the Navy because they realized they're about to put people in nuclear submarines really far down the water without space to really step away from conflict or work through relational aspects. They said we need to figure out how we can help people make sure that they're in the right place to be in this type of a situation. So we use that tool. It's a great tool because it gives you some really quantifiable data. It's a numbers based as opposed to just a quadrant kind of shifting from corner to corner. It really gives you numbers that show you what you really and truly desire through looking for affection, how you express yourself, but also how you present to the world. And it gives you the difference between those two things. So it really gives you some indication as to what kind of scenarios, what kind of a career experience you truly would want. That's really how the Firebird Bee helps as it weaves in with the disc.
Michael, that's my favorite instrument. I've loved it for over a decade now. How you might feel something internally and sense it, but you may not be displaying that, putting it on the outside. And many times particularly helpful in making a distinction about a career and how much to go. So you might be interested in sales, and someone says, yeah, I really think I can sell. Well, that might be internal, but they can't really express it. And other people are just the opposite. And if they see that distinction, it can help them make a better, more informed career choice.
So Disc Fire, the third one that we use is the Holland Career Key, which really kind of marries the personality with the potential career directions. It's another great one. And the fourth one that we use is it's actually one we created. It's the My Story exercise, where instead of just pulling data through asking a lot of different questions, we ask a very simple, repetitive question to try to pull a lot of story out of the student and get as much of their story, their experience, to try to help identify things that they're passionate about, where they felt challenged, where they felt successful. And in telling those stories and building that narrative, they're able to kind of match alongside these other assessments and hopefully create some direction through step two. So step one is assessments, and step two would be our coaching. So with the coaching sessions, we do much like we do with any other coaching experience. It is all based on the master coach model.
Well, that's a good point, and you can see now where this coaching skill kind of comes into the career process is as we put those instruments out there, and then, as you said, have them tell their story. Coaches are trained to really listen, to listen for the key words, the repeated words, to explore certain more valuable words so that they are really beginning to talk about what their deeper passion and interest really might be. And we reflect back what we heard them say. And sometimes for the first time they hear themselves say it, and we're able to kind of give that back to them. And again, it's the skill of the coach, but in this case, it's applied to the career process. And as they move forward with some career sessions, we got to move them toward the next step in their career discovery or steps into actually moving into that chosen area.
And so with the coaching that we do, it's not consulting. So if you're not familiar with coaching, it's not athletic coaching. It's not consulting where we're coming in with answers as the coach. And here's the test that you've taken, and so this is the direction. So grab your accounting book on the way out. That's really not how it works at all. We take the data and then we pull from the student, and we pull from their unique perspective. We don't come at it with any agenda as to what we want you to end up. Obviously, we're not the ones who have to live in your career. We're not the ones who have to be in that role. You're the one who gets to be in that role, and you're the one who gets to live that career out. So we want to help you as the student be as in the best position possible to be passionate and committed to the decision that you make with whatever choice you do on your pathway. And so it's all based on pulling your best thoughts, your best ideas, your best next steps, and then we're going to help you create some action steps to get there. So it's not just a good, fun conversation where we're all agreeable, but it's really helping you put some really teeth to the ideas that you have and really make it happen.
Let me just add that it's really not just about interest in a whole lot of things, but I'm not motivated to really stick with just a few. So we want to help pull from that student not only what interests him or her, but also what really motivates. What are those key words? What have they done? And we help pull that out. What could they see themselves doing? And then finally, what could they commit to, at least for the next step? And to be honest, a lot of times that very first step is not the final step, and that's understandable. But if we can pull up some motivators that underline both steps, then we got a much better chance of a long-term career success.
Right. So assessments and then coaching, and we can talk a little bit at the end of the levels of coaching, the amount of coaching that you can choose to receive. And then the third step we're actually really excited about because that's resource networking. So this is kind of one of the things that separates what Leadership Systems does with Pathways with really anything else that you can do to give yourself an edge in this space. And that is we've been doing this for 3 decades. We've got thousands of people literally that we've connected with over the years, hundreds of different job titles, dozens of different industries and fields that we have connections with, that we know people who are in those places right now or have experience in those places. So the final step of our Pathways process is really all about helping you get connected with someone who has real experience in the field or in the role that you want to go after, or that you've decided that you want more information about. This is very different from the traditional take your kid to work day. There's no pushing on our end. There's no, we got this connection with this company and they're trying to help us. We're trying to push people towards a specific. It's not that at all. It's really just, who do we know that's in the space that you want to be in? And then you get to have real candid conversations with people who will not sugarcoat it, but they'll give you the real information. This is what my industry is like. This is what this role is like. Here's what you would love about it. Here's what you would not love about it. And so you have a really clear picture going forward as to what that experience is going to be like as a career.
Well said, Michael. We're not a career organization. We're not trying to map anybody to any particular field. But as you said, we have relationships, deep relationships in a lot of different fields. And very often someone says, well, this is what I want to do. So we do our best to help them connect with an individual in that field or a close related field. And oftentimes they know the issues, they know the right things to say, they know the questions to ask to help them get a really clear look at that field. Sometimes they can introduce them to the next person, and that's wonderful. But having that real good connection with, discussion with, looking into the eyes of someone who's really done that job can make or break the decision.
Absolutely. Well, if you know much about coaching, you spend any time with leadership systems, you know that we typically don't spend a lot of time talking. We spend a lot more time listening. So we've been talking quite a bit right now. I want to share some stories of some other people who have actually gone through the Pathways or student career planning process. And one is actually one of our certified coaches as well. So you can hear a little bit of their perspective. So take a moment and check this out.
Hey there, and welcome to Pathways. My name is Matthew Goucher. I'm a certified coach here at Leadership Systems. I'm also a High Point University graduate of the class of 2020. I have my degree in human relations, nonprofit management, as well as leadership. All right, so why Pathways is valuable for me? There's two aspects. One, the personality tests, and two, the coach. That first part, the personality tests, you get access to several different personality tests that help you understand who you are and the skills that you have. But you aren't just taking these alone. You have that second part, which is a coach. You're able to take these tests, learn more about yourself, what you're good at, and then apply it to where you want to go and what you want to do. For me, that's the whole thing, is you get all these hard skills, but then you get that person to come alongside you and work on these things, creating that plan to get from where you are to where you actually want to go. If any of you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Michael will be more than happy to share my contact information, and I'll be happy to hop on the phone and dive more into this with you. But for now, enjoy the webinar, and I hope you see the opportunity that is before you to help you get from where you're at to where you want to be. Thanks.
Receiving coaching through LSI gave me the direction, the resources, and the permission that I needed to intentionally explore my passions and more clearly align them with my potential career.
I would absolutely recommend it. To me, it was the most personal approach and won't leave you guessing.
Again, they didn't do it by pressuring me or lecturing or preaching at me or even suggesting careers for me. But instead, by asking the right question, it was as if my mind was unlocked to a place that I'd never allowed myself to go before.
The greatest thing about Jim's coaching method is that it's always you solving the problem or the issue.
What I knew I needed was the space and the structure in order to clearly analyze my strengths and my interests.
Jim uses questions to pull information from whoever he's coaching in order to solve the problem. It's not him implanting ideas or solutions into the situation.
If I were a freshman coming into college, I would be running after this program and this model because it has changed the path of my life. Seriously.
It's not just a different tool or a different skill to have, but rather is a completely different mindset.
Well, thank you, Dylan, Katie, and Matthew for sharing. Again, Matthew is one of our certified coaches, and has gone through a lot of training to get to this point, is also has received coaching as a part of his process as well. So if you do have questions about any of these aspects of Pathways, or if you want more information, you can always check out leadershipsystems.com/pathways. That's really the next step from here. So if you're watching this right now as a student, as a parent, as someone who just ran across this on the internet, the next step would be to go to leadershipsystems.com/pathways. You're going to find more information about the assessments. You're going to find more information about coaching. And that's where you can actually do your, it's really just one click to sign up to receive the Pathways coaching process. There's 3 options if you, once you get on there, just to give you a little bit of a heads up. The first step is, it's really a basic level. You get the DISC personality assessment and a quick call to kind of explain it. So that's just to really kind of toe in the water to help understand a little bit about what it is, and you get to taste a little bit of what the assessment feels like. Step 2 option is more of a generic Pathways coaching option. There's 2, all the assessments, and then 2 coaching sessions, I believe. And then there's the advanced one that also includes, I think, twice as many coaching sessions, more resource networking, and you actually get the ability to receive some coaching training. This is something we found is really valuable for students coming out of university level. They're able to step into a career already having learned some soft skills from a leadership organization, and being able to step in and say, yeah, I actually have been able, I've experienced coaching people. I've experienced learning about what coaching other people and managing other people and dealing with conflict and active listening and all these great things. That's really valuable. So we throw that into the advanced level if that's something that you're interested in. So I can only speak to my experience as a college transferring into career, and so I'm pretty distant from that. My kids are 12 and under, so I'm not quite there as a parent. So that'd be really valuable for Jim to share his experiences, because he's a parent of kids who have all come through university, have all come through this decision-making process, and he's experienced the highs and the lows of that. So I'm going to let him share a little bit about his experience with his kids.
Happy to do it, Michael. You know, you're right. We have 4, my wife Karen and I have 4 successfully launched young adults, and we're really thrilled about that, happy about it. But I'm going to be honest with you, be very vulnerable and telling you some of the stories very briefly. But my oldest, when he was Andrew, when he was heading out for a career, he was originally sort of set to do, you know, maybe law enforcement. I was trying to get him to think about FBI, maybe something different. We were talking about it, and a professional executive coach, the same thing that we are, Michael, said, so what's your son going to do? And I said, well, I'm trying to help him figure that out currently. And she looked at me and she said, well, you know what the problem is, don't you? And I said, no. She said, it's you. And I thought, this is what I do. You know, I mean, surely I can do it with my own son. And she said, well, actually, no, you can't. And so I ended up having to get him to go speak with her to get her outside, more objective view. You see, parents, as you can imagine, are certainly full of caring concern, but that can translate into creation of subjectivity. That can create, you know, well-intended behaviors, but not very helpful behaviors. And we tend to want to push. And here I was trying to get him, well, why don't you think about FBI? And I was putting him on the phone with these FBI agents, and you know, really trying everything in the world. I took him to do all the things that he said he wanted to do. And his long story short, he didn't do those things. He ended up, I did notice though, that he had a strong observational ability. He could observe better than most. And then I noticed that he was good with data and details and specificity. And he was fairly introverted, and I began to put some of those pieces together. But for the life of me, as a subjective parent, I was probably not particularly helpful. Another coach was more helpful. Finally, he began to pursue law, and he's now a very successful corporate attorney doing amazing things. So that was one. Our second daughter is selling very high-end homes and is probably, if she doesn't end up being governor, she may be president of the United States. And we're excited about her career as well. My third daughter is a manager at Lilly Pulitzer, very fine ladies clothing, and it loves her. She's very creative. It fits her well. And then the fourth, we knew he had an IT bent, but he was wanting to be a professional game design person. And I wasn't real excited about that as a parent and didn't know exactly how. And again, I struggled, and we tried. It took him maybe longest to find help, but as we began to introduce him to the right things, he began to really focus in on the IT world, and he He's now an IT manager that works for Velocity Solutions, and his starting salary was higher than my salary at 50 years of age. So we're just real thrilled to see their success. And I struggled in that area because I didn't do what I would recommend you do, which is think outside the box, find some objectivity, and make sure they go that route instead of trying to figure out yourself. So parents, that's my lesson of the day. We tend to want to do the very opposite. We tend to push, we tend to tell, we tend to explain, we tend to not listen and observe and to pull them out. And so that's what I would encourage you to think about, to do something in that space. But, it's kind of my story. You might want to listen to a friend of ours that had a success story as well.
Yeah, let's take a look.
I'm Martin Sauer, and I work at Lancaster Bible College. I met Jim and Karen back about 30 years ago when we were in church together down in Baton Rouge. And have always kept in touch with Jim. He and I have always kind of talked periodically. And one day I was telling him the story of our daughter and kind of asking advice and help. Our daughter was an underperformer in high school is probably a good way to say it. She got B's and C pluses. She went to University of Colorado, and I think she majored in partying as opposed to schoolwork. So she stays out in Colorado. She's up in Breckenridge waiting tables, and we talked for probably a year or so, and she's just frustrated because she doesn't know what she wants to do. She doesn't obviously want to wait on tables. She thinks she can do more than that. So I'm talking to Jim and kind of telling him about all this, and he said, well, let me get she and Karen, his wife, connected. So Karen started working with Steph, and over the course of maybe 6 months or so, they finally set a path for Steph to take, and that path was to be a physical therapist. Well, going from a C student in college to getting into physical therapy school, you can't do that without retaking classes. So Stephanie at night, while she's waiting tables, goes back to college, retakes all of her classes, gets her GPA up to where it's adequate enough to get into physical therapy school. She actually got into a dual program, which was the occupational therapy and physical therapy. She was the valedictorian in her occupational therapy class. And to me, what it showed me is when a student gets into their passion, they can do incredible things that as a parent and as people we watch and we look at and we're like, wow, that is just neat to see. And now she's been a physical therapist for 6 years or so and has just blossomed, loves what she's doing. And it's all because Karen got with her and really just started asking her, what is it that motivated you? And Steph was kind of be able to walk down that process and understand where her passions were. What I would say to a parent that's considering this is, for the benefit you get out of it, the cost is totally insignificant. And it's more about getting the students to get that passion and that dream in life, to know, what am I going to chase? Why do I need to go to college? Why do I need to go do anything? What is it that I'm ultimately after? And I've found, even as an educator, if you can give students that vision and that passion, or point them in their passion, they can do anything. And they will absolutely amaze you what they're willing to do and put up with to make that happen.
Well, Michael, here's a good story and a good example of a really sharp fella, a committed parent, someone who is a professional educator and really wanted to do the best for his own kids, but found that the need for something a little bit more objective. He's an incredible motivator. I know him well. He's an incredible motivator and encourager of other students, but he found he needed a little help when it came to his own, just like myself. And that's what I'd recommend for you, is find someone a little bit more objective that has some skills and knowledge about this field, and then introduce them to that and help them get a good start. Also, if you noticed, Martin had to end up spending a little bit extra funds to find that right field, and if you do this early on, you might be able to avoid that extra expense.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to
Thank
to view this webinar. The next steps, as we already mentioned, are our website, leadershipsystems.com/pathways. You can also reach us at mwallace@leadershipsystems.com, jsmith@leadershipsystems.com. That's our emails. You're welcome to reach out to us anytime you have a question about this. I want to say one final thing about this. This really goes beyond the $122,000 on the education and the time even of restarting or pivoting a direction towards a different career. We've actually talked quite a bit about this recently, the decades of development. We often start with survival. We need to eat, right? So we'll look for something, literally anything. And then after that, it's looking for success, and we find success. But you can miss so much. You can miss years and years off of your life when you're not really finding significance. And significance is not something that you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 years old to really find and apply and experience. If you start with something like Pathways, you're able to recognize what significance means to you right now and how you can achieve that through the career process. So significance is not something that you wait on. It's something that you can identify soon. It will help you feel more fulfilled in whatever it is that you want to do. Regardless of what your parents have said or what your friends are doing or what the new hot job is or you pick a college based on the mascot or the football team or whatever, that's not going to lead to true significance. Understanding what you really care about, what you're really motivated by, understanding who you are, that's where the significance really begins. And that's where your next step, your next right step is going to be found. So we encourage you to take some more time and discover what Pathways is all about. Let us know if you have any questions. We want to help you make your next step the right step every step of the way. Thank you so much for the time that you've given. We appreciate it, and we look forward to connecting with you at all in the future if you'd like to.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you.